Welcome to ClickMyProject.com. Let we discuss about the process sorted consecutive local binary pattern for texture classification. Let me see the abstract of the process sorted consecutive local binary pattern for texture classification. Extracting efficient texture patterns will be more helpful in the identification of best features from the images. The selection of the best features produces effective accuracy in the classification process. A method that extracts efficient features from the images based on sorted consecutive local binary patterns is proposed. The proposed sorted consecutive local binary pattern, all the patterns of LPP were selected in a rotational invariant manner. Compared to the conventional LPP patterns, the patterns you obtained using the proposed method is unique. The extracted features were then classified using support vector machine classifier. The performance of the process is measured based on accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity of the classifier. The main objectives of the process is to extract efficient texture-based feature extraction methods. The following were the objectives of the methods: to extract continuous patterns from images, to employ dictionary learning based on KD tree, to measure the performances of the process based on the classification using support vector machine. The extracted patterns, the input images were first filtered using Gaussian filtered Gaussian kernel. The CLPP texture patterns were first calculated to the input images. The sorted consecutive local binary text patterns were then calculated to the input images. In the sorted consecutive local binary pattern features, SCLPPS, SCLPPM plus minus, and SCLPPM plus and minus were calculated. The input images were divided into patches. In each patches, the center pixel is selected. The pixels that were greater than the center pixels were provided label 1 and the others were provided label 0. The identified patterns were then sorted. The sorted patterns were then converted into decimal and they act as the texture patterns for the input images. The extracted patterns were then combined from using KD tree formation. The patterns that were greater than the particular range were arranged in the left branch of the tree and the others were arranged in the right branch of the tree. The histogram is generated for the KD tree and then it is normalized and the extracted values were saved as the features. The extracted features were then classified using support vector machine classification. The performances of the process is measured based on the parameters like accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity of the process. Let us see the flow of the process. The input images were initially filtered using the application of Gaussian kernel. After that, the feature extraction process is employed. For the extraction of the features, the sorted consecutive local binary pattern algorithm is employed. So in the sorted consecutive local binary pattern, the texture patterns from the images were extracted in the cases of sign and magnitude, and in magnitudes both positive and negative regions were also separately identified. So for that, the three types of sorted consecutive local binary patterns were obtained. And then in the CLPP features also similarly the sign and magnetic features were extracted. So all these features were combined to produce the feature of the test images. Then after that, the KD tree formation is employed. So in this KD tree formation, the input features were split into the left and right regions, and based on that the test image features were extracted. So this is employed for the sorting arrangement of the input feature values extracted from the images. After that, classification of the features were employed based on support vector machine classifier. The support vector machine classifier classifies the input data into the type of texture that it belongs based on the kernel functions which is used in the classification process. So the input image textures were classified into the corresponding textures based on the sorted consecutive local binary pattern and the SVM classifier processes. Finally, the performances of the processes were measured in terms of accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity, which is measured for the overall classifying process. Let us see the running procedure of the process. If you want to run the code, select the file main.noguy which is present in the source code folder. Right click it and click on run file. You will get the process getting started. First, select any one of the textures given as input. So if you select any one of the textures, the textures were filtered based on filtering process. In the filtering process, the texture images were slightly enhanced in order to extract the texture patterns from the images more exactly. The next step is the calculation of the CLBP. In CLBP, this is the CLBP texture that we have obtained, and this is the CLBP codes that we have obtained. The main goal of the process is the calculation of the SCLBP. So for SCLBP, the calculations were the CLBP and the SCLBP M plus M minus and S. So we have calculated the SCLBP M plus M minus and then S codes, and the feature values for the SCLBP M plus features, SCLBP M minus, and they also for SCLBP S. They were measured. Finally, the features were combined in order to produce the text image features, that is the CLBP features, SCLBP M plus, SCLBP M minus, and SCLBP S. All those features were combined, producing the text image features. After that, the classification is done based on support vector machine classifier in order to identify the input texture type. So this process will take some time for execution. So this is the input pattern identified. This is done based on the support vector machine classification. After that, the performance measures were done. So this is the performance values measured. The classification rate, sensitivity, and specificity of the classifiers were measured. So thus we have identified the patterns of the input images based on the features extracted using sorted consecutive local binary pattern. Thank you.